The goose nipped Joe on the pecker and honked for a piece of bread. Joe handed it a piece, which it quickly gobbled up. Then it nipped him on the pecker again. "No more bread for you," Joe said to the goose. Then he tossed a piece to one leg. Cock Gobbler honked his disapproval. There seemed to be more geese than usual on the riverbank today. Joe looked at his bread supply and determined he didn't have enough. He never had enough. Even when there were only 3 or 4 geese to feed, he never had enough. He tossed another piece to one leg. Right before he could pick it up, Badwing snatched it and honked in victory. That made Joe smile. He really enjoyed feeding the geese. It was a peaceful pleasure that reminded him of his daughter. It was ages ago when Joe and his daughter Jenna were searching for a secluded fishing hole along the riverbank. What they found was Goose City. There were about 40 geese waddling along the bank, and quite a few more swimming in the river. Jenna was reluctant to move and clung to Joe's leg as one approached them. She asked what they were. Joe told her they were geese, Canada geese to be exact. A goose waddled toward them and began to honk. Jenna tightened her grip and asked why it was coming toward them. Joe really didn't know, so he blurted out the first thing that popped into his head. He told her the goose wanted to be friends and that it was hungry. Jenna loosened her grip and asked if the goose would eat a sandwich. Joe told her no, but it would eat bread. Jenna said she wanted to give the goose a piece of bread, so Joe gave her a piece and told her to throw it, but she just held it out, waiting for the waddling goose to come closer. Joe was reluctant to let her hand the bread to the goose. He didn't know what they were capable of. Encroaching with its menacing waddle, honking as if it were warning them. When it was close enough, Joe noticed its eyes, little bitty ebony orbs that seemed to him the most foreboding things he's ever seen. He looked down at Jenna, and she was smiling. He didn't want to spook her, so he decided to trust this goose. If things went bad, surely he could end it before it got worse. The goose was close enough to kiss her. It honked. Jenna gave him the bread. It honked again, and she laughed. Jenna exclaimed that she loved the geeses, and Joe replied that he loved them too. Fishing didn't get accomplished that afternoon. They fed the geeses. When they were out of bread, they left and got more. All the geeses on the bank honked to the geeses on the river that there was free bread to be had. All you needed to do was honk that you wanted some, and it would be thrown to you or handed, because the little person could not throw. The geeses were happy. Joe was happy. Jenna was the happiest. When they left, she asked if they could come back tomorrow. Joe said they would, and they did. They fed the geeses once a week. They even named them according to their appearance. They named and fed geeses for 13 years straight. Once a week, then once a month, then every now and then. By the time Jenna turned 18, feeding the geeses was far and few in between. The last time she was seen, she was feeding the geeses down the street at Willow Park. A goose nipped Joe on the butt. He turned to see who it was and dropped the loaf of bread. He didn't know who nipped him, but it wasn't Cock Gobbler. All the geese he beheld were silent and as still as statues, not one feather ruffled. To him, they seemed to have gathered themselves into some sort of formation, not to eat bread, but a configuration of entrapment. A bit of pain settled in where the nip took place, nowhere near the pain of a dog bite or a bee sting, but pain nonetheless. Then he noticed their eyes. They were no longer the little bitty black orbs he was accustomed to. They had changed to little smoky white spheres, brimmed with hate. In them, he could see the geese meant to do terrible things to whoever roamed their riverbank, especially those who handed out bread. Joe turned to the geese he was just feeding and discovered that they had changed too. He saw one leg and broken wing, and their eyes were filled with the same smoky white hate. He stood in the middle of 20 ungeesely geese, with another gaggle approaching the bank from the river. His first thought was not to move. Maybe, if he stood still, they wouldn't harm him. Maybe they would change back. So there he stood, looking at the geese, with them looking at him. He turned back towards the river and noticed that all the geese made it ashore. He estimated 100 geese had him surrounded. That's when he decided on a second course of action. He had to get to his car. He slowly turned back around. His car was 50 yards away. He took one step towards it, and the evil gaggle of geese honked in unison. The sound they produced was ungodly, making Joe think they had just opened the gates of hell. While his mind was attempting to grasp what was happening, the geese attacked, from all sides at every angle imaginable. Blunt beaks snatched at his clothes. Webbed feet clawed at his skin. Powerful wings pounded his body. Joe was in a state of confusion, which changed to a world of hurt, and he instinctively took action. Joe reached out, grabbed a goose by the neck and squeezed, feeling vertebrae pop like finger knuckles. The goose struggled and flapped its wings while it was in Joe's grasp, and it almost took flight. But it soon succumbed to the inevitable and went limp. Joe swung the goose in every direction, trying to hit as many geese as possible. He was highly successful. Joe wielded the goose as skillfully as a knight wielding a morning star, pounding and crushing their tiny skulls, fracturing and breaking their long necks, dislocating and sometimes severing their enormous wings. Hollow bones are no match for a man fighting for survival. All was going well for Joe even after his weapon fell apart. The geese were discombobulated. They stood around, honking their rage, and only a few attacked. Joe easily killed them with punches and kicks, but he was tired, and he was starting to feel the pain from their assault. He had to make a break for his car. If they attacked him en masse again, he didn't think he would survive. His car was 50 yards away, but it could have been 500 as far as Joe was concerned. Running was out of the question. Simply put, his body experienced too much trauma in a very short time. The geese had done a number on him, not to mention he was 56 years old with a bum knee. The best he could do was a fast walk with a severe limp. Looking over his shoulder, Joe noticed the geese were forming up again. They would attack soon. Fear strengthened him, blocking out a majority of his pain. About 20 yards away from his car, he noticed a goose flying straight towards him. He quickened his pace, attempting to get to his car before the flying goose got to him. He didn't make it. The goose's wing struck Joe in the face, instantly breaking his nose. Blood shot from his nostrils and also pooled in his sinuses and poured down the back of his throat. He started choking, and he couldn't breathe. He dropped to his knees for the second time today, and again, the geese were on him. The sheer numbers of the geese took Joe to the ground. He was on the bottom of an enormous goose pile that was growing by the second. Breathing was difficult, and they used everything in their arsenal to try to rip him to shreds. Joe had given up at this point, and it occurred to him, is this what happened to his daughter? Did the geeses kill her too? Joe could see her, in his mind's eye, attempting to escape the same predicament he had fallen into, trying to stay alive, only to succumb to the inevitable, death by 1,000 geeses, torn apart and gobbled up by a ghastly, gruesome gaggle with mayhem on their minds. And could he hear their thoughts? He thought he could. Their minds and bodies have been corrupted and possessed by things not of this world, things created by chaos, full of malice, with the sole purpose of destruction, determined to destroy anything and everything they deemed unworthy. He could see the things they have done, terrible things he wished he could unsee. Worlds upon worlds devastated to the point that nothing could exist except sand and darkness, and most likely, this is what they were. Darkness, a revolution of sorts is starting, an apocalypse to end all things. The time has come for the world to stop turning and life to cease to exist. They will take their due, and through the geeses, they will ravage the world. Joe couldn't believe what he was perceiving. The whole world being slaughtered by geeses, all life wiped out by an insignificant fowl. If he believed what he could feel from their thoughts, then they deserved every bit of damnation that befell them. So he rose. Joe rose from beneath the pile of ungodly body snatchers and slaughtered every goose that was near him. When more came ashore, he killed them with the prejudice deserving of the unholy. After the culling, Joe sat amongst the bodies and thought that they should have chosen a better host to take over the world. Geese aren't exactly world beaters. Battered and battle-weary, Joe passed out and dreamed of hot sands and even hotter suns. Joe awoke as the sun's sitting shadows stretched across his battle-scarred face. He sat up and surveyed the carnage around him. How many geese did he kill? 100? 150? It didn't matter, and he didn't care. He survived. He tried to stand, but that was impossible. He reached for his pocket to retrieve his phone, but he had no pockets. Most of his clothes were shredded or just gone. Exhausted, Joe lay back down amongst the broken bodies and drifting feathers of the geese. Joe sat up when he heard a scream and gunfire in the distance. He couldn't tell how far away they were, but when he heard them again, he knew the direction. They were coming from the woods. The sun had set, and the tree line looked like a solid black wall. He did make out a pair of white spheres in the darkness. They were much bigger than the eyes the geese possessed. Then he saw another pair, and another, and another, and another. He heard the familiar yip of coyotes. He knew they were hungry and they were hunting. He had a feeling they were here to ravage the world, but he prayed they were here for the geeses.